what do I say? It's good afternoon here in Israel. It's good morning in South Africa. It's even earlier in the morning in Europe. And in America, if there are any heroes from America joining us, then it's 5 a.m. on the East Coast. Welcome, welcome. And our subject is Tikkun Olam in Africa. And I'm going to ask Riva to introduce the subject, but first of all, I want to introduce Riva. And let me start by saying, for South Africans, or also for ex-South Africans, Riva needs no introduction, and that is not an overstatement. Okay, everybody knows who Riva Foreman is. Riva Foreman was one of South Africa's first models, actually considered a top model before that phrase actually came into common use. And building on that, she became, first of all, a motivational speaker, but then she branched out into the business world and became a uber successful businesswoman. And this was in a time where there weren't that many women on the business scene, certainly not in South Africa. And she was really, really quite outstanding. And she developed, I would call it an empire, if you like, of a cosmetics business, which was nationwide. And Riva, in fact, Riva's face was actually on the product. So like everybody would be able to recognize Riva literally in the street. And of course, that is still the case. Certainly people of a certain generation just mention the name Riva Foreman and it opens any door that you want. Riva has, of course, through the course of her life, done different things. Okay, that was certainly a high point for Riva. But in the last couple of decades already, Riva has turned her focus to humanitarian work and also to work in the Jewish community. She's a very well-respected member of the representative wider Jewish community bodies. And she has also taken a particular interest, and this, I think, she can confirm this, I think her passion is Temple Israel Hillbrow and the Temple Israel Heritage Center. Riva has just about single-handedly fought a battle to keep Temple Israel Hillbrow from being closed. She can talk about that later. And building on the base of Temple Israel Hillbrow, a new organization called the Temple Israel Heritage Center, which is an outlet for Tikkun Olam in the world and, of course, in South Africa. Riva was also active, by the way, in trying to improve relations between Israel and South Africa. She was actually the first person to initiate tours to Israel, which were completely objective. In other words, which showed people all sides of the story without making any sort of subjective comment. In other words, she would take them both to Israel and to meet Palestinians, and people would just have to come back and form their own opinions. And that, by the way, has taken on, and everyone's doing it now. But Riva was actually the first one to do that. Anyway, this is a fantastic, I want to tell you more later about how enthused I was by Riva and this project that we're going to be talking about now. But I think the best thing I can do is hand over to Riva. So please, Riva, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I trust you can hear me.
Yes.
Good. First of all, it's always difficult to say anything after that glowing introduction because you and I and the world know, and I think everyone who's attending this session, I can see there's some South Africans and your friends and people from all over the world, is that you're as good as what you've done yesterday and maybe what we're going to do today and again. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes, my passion is Temple Israel Hillbrow and Temple Israel Heritage Center. As in the 80s, I worked very much in transformation here in South Africa with the famous South African expression Ubuntu, which is very much the heart of our Torah as well. When it says, when I look in your eyes, I see myself. And to see the mistakes, the tragedies, injustices that are taking place, not only in South Africa, but worldwide, I do trust you will, with David and myself, join us on this international platform. We trust of progressive Judaism to correct these injustices. But instead of listening to more words from me, I would like, Manny, just to show you a video which I think can express it much more succinctly than I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Manny. This is the first video. It'll be the first video. All the way through, if you can show it all the way through. From the start.
I'm waiting for it to come up, and I have to share screens and everything and stop it.
It'll take time.
I'm very grateful to Manny for this. I was the one supposed to show the videos, but then at the last minute it turned out that the sound wasn't coming through and I didn't manage to fix it. So
Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may live and prosper in the land that God has given you. These words, taken from the Torah, have been at the heart of Temple Israel for over 80 years. Established in 1936 and led by the legendary Rabbi Moses Weiler, Temple Israel was the first Reform house of worship in South Africa. Housed in a beautiful Art Deco building designed by celebrated architect Herman Kallenbach, Temple Israel has been a central pillar of progressive Judaism for decades. Rabbi Weiler was an active supporter of human rights throughout his life, inspired by his faith to pursue justice and to work for Tikkun Olam, a better world. Among other initiatives, he was instrumental in establishing a school in the impoverished township of Alexandra, defying the government's intent to subordinate it to inferior so-called Bantu education. This drew praise from Nelson Mandela in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. The school, bearing Rabbi Weiler's name, is still going strong. Temple Israel, located in the heart of cosmopolitan Hillbrow, was home to a large and vibrant congregation. Over the years, however, the demographics of Hillbrow changed as congregants moved away to the suburbs. Determined to keep the spirit of Temple Israel and Rabbi Weiler alive, champions such as Chairperson Reva Foreman, Benny Stolzen, other board members and volunteers continued working to ensure that Temple Israel's doors remained open, both as a center for Tikkun Olam and to serve the residents of the area. For over a decade, Temple Israel was host and partner to the first inner-city project of Africa Tikkun, a renowned initiative dedicated to upliftment through education, founded by the late Chief Rabbi Cyril Harris and Dr. Bertie Lubner. In 2014, the temple was declared a Blue Plaque Heritage Site by the Johannesburg Heritage Foundation. In July 2016, Temple Israel celebrated its 80th anniversary and the launch of the Temple Israel Heritage Center. The occasion provided an opportunity to showcase the temple's history and legacy of social action through a permanent exhibition in the building. Temple Israel Heritage Center, based at this historic site, is an exciting initiative pursuing justice and a better world by fighting all forms of hatred of the other, promoting social cohesion and reconciliation.
The goal of Temple Israel Heritage Center is to break down those terrible barriers that divide people, barriers based on culture, religion, ethnicity. We indeed should be walking, living and prospering in this beautiful land that God has given us.
In a South Africa that is grappling with racism, and it looks like we'll never again be as one as our Constitution promises us to be, and it begins to look like all those efforts made by Nelson Mandela to reconcile the people and make sure that it's very much in line with the preamble to our Constitution, we ought not to participate in things that tend to deepen the divisions of the past.
Temple Israel already has some powerful and inspiring supporters. Our founding patrons include the fearless former public protector, Thuli Madonsela, and the iconic anti-apartheid lawyer, George Bizos. With its ideal location and proud legacy of social action, the Temple Israel Heritage Center is in a unique position to become a force for good, advocating for justice and promoting cohesion between peoples in South Africa and beyond. South Africa's greatest son, Nelson Mandela, proved that it is possible to overcome hatred of the other and build a better, more just world. But we need your help for our mission to succeed. So please, join us and let's make that difference together. Temple Israel Heritage Center, dedicated to fighting hatred of the other.
Thank you, Manny, for that. And I would just like now to just add a few more words. Temple Israel Heritage Center is a bridge to cover the divides in Judaism itself. We trust that Temple Israel Heritage Center is going to bring the traditional Orthodox and the progressive movement in South Africa closer together. As you saw, for 10 years, we had a project here with the late Chief Rabbi Cyril Harris of blessed memory. And I think this is very important that as a bridge, we look at not only healing rifts between different religions, but even within our own religion as well. And our other major purpose, before I hand over to my international chair, our other major purpose is fighting every form of bigotry or hatred, be it anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, whatever the prejudice is based on. And I believe that this is a magnificent heritage, because I'll just conclude now with quoting Mandela, whom I had the honor of meeting. He said, instead of vengeance and hatred, I chose reconciliation and nation building. And we need you to join us. Thank you. May I now introduce my co-international chair, Rabbi Advocate David Benjamin. I'm really very, very fortunate that David, who obtained his law degree in South Africa, and I met. I don't believe anything is by chance. We met at the World Zionist Organization at one of the conferences in Israel. And in 2017, a year after we launched, he had the opportunity to be in Johannesburg just for 5 hours and on his way to Australia. And he came to Temple Israel Heritage Center. And we then went to the Constitutional Court around the corner. And I'm very grateful that a man of David's stature, a man who for 20 years led the Israel Defense Force legal team and played a prominent role, a man who is already a renowned and respected rabbi of our movement, who has several degrees to his name. And really, his CV is so amazing that I would ask you to please have a look at it on your homepage. So, David, I'm really honored, and it's a great mitzvah for me that we have you as the international co-chair and your vision for Temple Israel Heritage Center.
Okay, thank you, Riva. That was a very extremely flattering introduction. But too flattering, but thank you anyway. Thank you anyway. So I would like to talk about this project. We call it for short TIHC, right, just to make things easier. And how actually it captured my imagination. And actually, Riva, the conference we met at was not the Zionist organization. It was this one. It was the WPJ.
Oh,
Previous, yeah. So
good.
Things do come out of this conference, as you all know.
Absolutely.
But I want to take you back in town. As you can all hear, my accent is South African. I've been living in Israel now for 30-something years, so I am more Israeli than South African. But I want to take you back now to when I lived in South Africa with my family. My late father was a rabbi in Cape Town, and I want to take you back now to the late 1980s. In the late 1980s, South Africa was literally ablaze. Okay, the apartheid government was sort of fighting really, really hard and becoming more and more repressive. As the opposition to apartheid increased, the government became more and more repressive. And I remember very clearly that one cold and rainy night in Cape Town, there's this area outside Cape Town called Crossroads, which was a huge squatter camp. A squatter camp in South Africa is people who are not white, okay, of different types, mostly African, people of African origin, okay, who are legally speaking not allowed to be in a certain area, so they're not allowed to build homes, but what they do is sort of make temporary structures just out in the open, using any materials they can find and put together. And this squatter camp developed into many, many thousands of people, probably tens of thousands at least of people, families who are living there. And one cold, very rainy night, the South African authorities came with bulldozers, all right, and just started mowing down the squatter camp in the middle of the night. Quite unbelievable. Okay, and of course you have families. This is something that goes beyond anything, whatever ideological position you may hold. And I'm very, very proud to say that our progressive congregation basically stood up and took in a large group of those people whose homes had been bulldozed, and took them into the building. We had a large building then of the temple, and took them in and basically housed them in the large temple hall, which was adjoining the synagogue. The only thing that divided between the hall and the synagogue were these like big dividers that you open and close, right? And there were literally hundreds of people in that hall. And our temple staff provided for them, gave them food, etc. Now, of course, this of course aroused the anger of the authorities. Okay, and I remember my father received several warnings that this had to end, and now. Okay, but I'm really proud to say that the temple stood strong, and the others who were, by the way, there were some churches doing this too. It was basically our congregation, the Reformed congregation, and some churches doing this. And just to illustrate what we're talking about, we actually held services at the temple. We wanted to keep this whole thing as low-key as possible. We didn't want people to find out about it. We actually held services in the temple, in the adjoining sanctuary, okay? And during those services, there were hundreds of people, including babies, and you could hear a pin drop. In other words, all these people sat in absolute silence while the services were going on in the adjoining room. Okay, quite remarkable. That is a memory I have from my student days. And anyway, I'll take that forward. And why am I mentioning that? Because I think that really does, for me, epitomize what Reform, progressive Jewish values are all about, right? Where Tikkun Olam takes such a central role in what we think is important in Judaism. And I've ever since then been looking for frameworks in which that kind of Tikkun Olam, okay, can be put into place. And I'm happy to say that I think Reva's come up with just the solution for that. To me, the advantage of this project in Johannesburg, specifically in this what has become a very rundown area of Johannesburg, which when a microcosm of just about every social ill that you can imagine. Okay. It's difficult to keep a shul open there, right? There aren't many Jews there. Not many Jews want to venture into that area to attend shul, okay? But as a platform for social justice work, for social action, it's probably that you couldn't ask for a better location. And I actually say this now as an Israeli, not as a South African, as an ex-South African with a connection, obviously, but I see the importance of this Temple Israel Heritage Center from a worldwide point of view. I think this is a place where our entire movement can actually focus on doing Tikkun Olam. We do Tikkun Olam in Israel, okay, that's true, and that's very, very important. But I think, beyond doing Tikkun Olam for our own people or for things which affect our own people, I think it's really important that we do Tikkun Olam for the wider community too. And that's really where this project stands out. And it also stands out in some very, very convenient ways. The one is that you can literally be on the front lines at the coalface where Tikkun Olam needs to be done, but at the same time, literally a couple of minutes away, you can actually be very comfortable in the city of Johannesburg. All right, there are kind of different bubbles there. Okay, you've got this Hillbrow bubble with all its problems, but around there you have actually very nice neighborhoods. So you are able to be there and do your Tikkun Olam work, but at the same time actually have all the facilities and the infrastructure of a large, major modern city. That's the one thing. Another huge advantage, okay, and I'm sorry this might sound a bit unrabbinical, but a huge advantage is that anyone who's using currency that is not South African, okay, and they're like, whether it's dollars, shekels, or euros, okay, they go much further in South Africa than they do anywhere else, okay, because of there's a the exchange rate is like $1 to 20, I don't know, 16 rand or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. All right, and the buying power of a rand is actually quite a lot. So there you go. So it's a great option for the worldwide progressive movement, A, because of its location, okay, and B, just because of how far resources can go there. And I'll give you another reason. South Africa is an incredible place to visit. So in that sense, it can also be not only a place where people support and do Tikkun Olam, it's a place where you want to go and visit and see your Tikkun Olam in action. It's perfect. You don't only have to come to Hillbrow, of course. You can go and see a game reserve. You can go down to Cape Town and see one of the most beautiful cities on earth. So it has all these ingredients wrapped into one, so which to my mind make it the perfect World Union Tikkun Olam project. And I for one, would be delighted if the World Union would get behind this project and even make it a flagship project and refer people to go there, people who want to volunteer, people who want to donate, direct it there, because I would say outside of Israel, this is probably the optimal place to do Tikkun Olam. What I'd like to do now is just to give you a taste of the kind of activities we've been doing. And our last major activity was in Pesach, just past. And what we've instituted is to have every year what we call a Passover Freedom event. This is not just for the Jewish community. Remember, everything we're doing here is for the wider community. This is Temple Israel Heritage Center is not just for Jews, not just for Reformed Jews, it's for anybody, okay, including people of other religions, of any persuasion. They're all welcome. That's the idea. And at this event, we invited Justice Albie Sachs. Now, Albie Sachs is literally one of the icons of the anti-apartheid struggle. Okay, anyone who's familiar with South African history knows who Albie Sachs is. Albie Sachs is known also because the South African government tried to assassinate him while he was in Mozambique. They blew up his car. He was very, very fortunate to survive. He lost an arm and the sight in one eye, but he's still going strong. He was a lawyer, and he became actually one of the architects of the present South African Constitution. Went on to become a judge of the South African Constitutional Court. He's also a very highly acclaimed author. He's written some wonderful books which are very, very worthwhile reading. Anyway, Albie very, very graciously, he's also Jewish, by the way, and Albie very, very graciously agreed to join us on a session, an online session, and he was remarkably intimate and frank. I think he surprised everybody who was there to the degree that he was willing to share his experiences. And what I would like to play for you now is a piece of that presentation he gave, where he answers a question about does he hold any resentment to the people who tormented him and who tried to kill him. Remember, he sat in solitary confinement for ages, and then he was forced to leave the country and was a refugee, and then they tried to kill him. So we asked him, did he have any resentment? And I'd like to play for you now what his response was. Okay, it's about 4 minutes long, so I ask for your patience, but I think it's worth hearing every word, because this is the kind of ethos that we want to spread from Temple Israel Heritage Center. So Manny, if you would be so kind as to put on the second video with Albie Sachs at the minute that I specified.
Judge, 1996, I hadn't been a judge for very long. I get this call from reception, my chambers. There's a man called Henry who said he has an appointment to see you. I said, send him through. And my heart is really beating fast. Henry had phoned me to say that he had organized the bomb in my car. He's going to the Truth Commission. Am I willing to see him? And I opened the security gate, and there's this man, tall and thin like me, younger, and he's looking at me, I'm looking at him. And in his eyes, I can see, this is the man I tried to kill. And he can see in my eyes, it's the man who tried to kill me. We didn't know each other. We hadn't fought over love, a job. He was on that side, I was on this side. He tried to kill me. We go into my chambers, and he's striding like a soldier. And I try and slow him down with my best judge's ambulation. You know, we men are always trying to be stronger than other men. And we talk, and he tells me about how good he was at school and university, Christian higher education, and rising in the army. He's telling me he's rising in the army to become head of the hit squad, one of the head squads. So I must pat him on the back for that. And then he describes the attack on me. He said it was actually initially meant for somebody else, but they hadn't taken my name off the list, so the bomb exploded. And I ended up by saying, Henry, normally when I say goodbye to somebody, I shake that person's hand. I can't shake your hand. Go to the Truth Commission, tell them what you know, and maybe we'll meet one day. And when we go back to the security gate this time, he's not striding, he's shuffling along like a defeated person. I forget about him. Working, end of the year, party in Joburg, band is playing. I go with a friend, and I hear a voice, Albie. It's Henry. It was made by, the party was held by filmmakers who were actually making Issy Dingo, and if you were there at the time of Issy Dingo in South Africa, wonderful Sophie. And he was one of only 2 soldiers who'd gone to the Truth Commission. And so they were interviewing him, and he was at the party. And he's beaming, and he comes up to me, and we get into a corner so that I can hear him. The band is playing really, really loud, and he said, I spoke to Bobby Naidu, to Sue Rabkin, Farouk Timol, all working for the TRC. And I told him everything I knew, and he said that one day, and I put out my hand and I shook his hand. I almost fainted. He went away beaming. But I heard afterwards he suddenly left the party and he went home and he cried for 2 weeks. I don't know if it's true. I'm not even checking up to find it's true. I want it to be true. I'd rather leave it as a possibility than discover it didn't happen. But for me, it's more important that this former killer, for the sake of what he sees as his country, his cause for apartheid, can now cry because of what we've done. And it was liberating for me as well. He's not my friend. I won't invite him for a drink. Interestingly enough, when George Bezos, who was in the film, died, I got a phone call out of the blue from Henry, because George had been representing me at the Truth Commission. Strange hearing his voice again. But we don't go to a movie together. But if I'm sitting in the bus and he sits next to me, I say, Henry, how are you getting on? We're living in the same country. We're living in the same country. And he had to take that step himself. And I didn't ask him to say sorry. How can you say you're sorry? Ridiculous. I wanted him to enter into the new South Africa, accept the norms and standards. The door was being opened for him now to tell the truth and become a more dignified human being, and he walked through that door. And for me, it was intuitive, it was instinctive, but it was strong. There's certain less of that abstract hatred out there in the world, threatening me, who knows, an enemy, the enemy. It's just this guy who's now moved forward a little bit, and I felt liberated by that experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Manny. Okay, that was a very powerful moment. There were many powerful moments. I actually urge you all to watch the full video of that event. It's available. We put it on the home feed if you'd like to watch it. That was just one of the many highlights of that conversation. what that draws attention to really, and this I think is maybe the biggest draw point, the best part of the Temple Israel Heritage Center, is that it's in South Africa. And it aims to embody the ideals of the new South Africa. Okay, there are few individuals in the last century who matched the moral stature of Nelson Mandela. And Riva touched upon what this idea of Ubuntu, right, of wonderful vision. And that I think is that tapping into that, because South Africa is still a work in progress. It's really made huge strides towards social justice, right? It was really from one of the most unjust and divided societies in the world. It's really come a long way, but it still has huge problems. And I would say the whole world has an interest in making South Africa work, because if South Africa really can work as well as it potentially could, all right, wouldn't that be a wonderful shining light to the whole world? So for me, that is like the ultimate reason, okay, to do Tikkun Olam in South Africa. And I might just say, we have the advantage, mostly because of Riva Foreman's reputation and pull power, of getting a very, very high profile platform in South Africa, so that when we do have events, we are able to invite really people from the top echelons of decision making and people who are influential in all sorts of fields to really make an impact and expose to them issues and make people aware of issues and try and influence things for the better. That's it. I think at this stage, if anyone would like to respond, you're very, very welcome to. However, if you have any questions or comments, suggestions, what we're really looking for are people to help us. And it doesn't have, you don't have to be local, not at all. Okay, we see this, you know, first of all, I've proven that you can do so much remotely. I've been sitting in Israel, certainly under COVID, I haven't been able to travel to South Africa at all, but we've been able to do a lot by remote. But we just feel this is a great opportunity for all. So if anyone would like to respond, please go ahead. Just wave or something and we can unmute you if you'd like to say something. Don't feel pressured though. Okay. Darryl?
I'd like to say hi. Hi to everyone. Hi, Riva. Hi, David.
Hi,
Look, I mean, obviously having been involved in Temple Israel and the magazine and everything, there really is so much exciting stuff going on in South Africa and through the Heritage Center. And I was just thinking that the magazine that we produced, maybe it's a nice idea to publish it on the page that you're talking about with all the videos. So if you'd like, I can send you a PDF of it. And you can also put it on the Temple Israel website so that people can read more about the history and everything about Temple Israel.
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, I'd like to answer Daryl as well, if I may, David. Thank you, Daryl. And I'd like to say that Daryl was instrumental in the excellence of our launch for both the 80th anniversary and TIHC. And if you'd like a hard copy, I believe, David, you've got quite a few with you in Israel.
Yeah. Anyone who comes past my house in Israel is very welcome to have a hard copy. But the great thing about this, it gives the background of the Temple Israel story, with which the video touched on, with Rabbi Weiler, who was one of the great rabbis of our movement, who basically set up the progressive Jewish movement in South Africa. After that, went on to Israel. Unfortunately, became famous for the worst reason you could actually imagine, which he lost two sons in battle in the wars of Israel. And in Israel, he became an activist for dealing with bereaved families, in addition to being a very respected professor at the Hebrew Union College. So he was really actually a legendary figure. In South Africa, he was literally a legendary figure, and that legacy deserves to be preserved. That's one of our objects at the Temple Israel Heritage Center. But thank you, Daryl. This booklet is superb, and Daryl actually, I think, wrote All of it,
Yeah.
or most of it. Yeah.
Well, I had some help from Erwin Manoyem, who's now written the book on the history of South African Jews, which is really amazing. So, yeah, but there were a lot of people who contributed messages and information and stuff, and you know, it's a really interesting project. You know, when you delve into the history of anything, and you know, history of your family, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, I think it's really fascinating to learn about that. And for me, going into that history, you know, finding out about everything involved in Temple Israel and how my family and so many families I know were involved, it's you know, it was very interesting. And I think the fact that Riva has championed Temple Israel for so many years, when originally the committees of the SAUPJ wanted to sell it off and get rid of it, you know, we can all take our hats off to Riva for standing her ground and keeping our history, and being the mother synagogue of the progressive movement in South Africa. I think it's quite remarkable. So kol hakavod to you, Riva.
Thank you, Daryl. I really appreciate those words. My only comment is Baruch Hashem. I thank Hashem for giving me the ability to do this, and for giving me people like you and David and Rabbi Nathan, Alfred, who's with us as well, because it needs a team. But I'd like to also, if I may, Daryl, just share one other aspect. We've been involved in the last, at least, David, I think it's now 2 years or more, in researching the horrific refugee question, not only in South Africa, but worldwide. And I think David was going to mention that one of our Freedom Seders, we always have a Seder after our Pesach connected with this story to help others. And we've got a magnificent video on this, where we got the testimony of 3 refugees in South Africa from the rest of Africa. And this is really very, very symbolic of refugees everywhere. And we also tied up with Professor Ruvi Ziegler in the UK to look at the actual laws and the actual problems. So this is something also I'm very, very interested in. And we'd like to share all these projects with you. And David, while there's still time left, and we hope there'll be more questions, maybe you could mention our projects which involve music and art and theatre to help social cohesion and bridge those horrible divides between different cultures and people.
I think instead of me talking about it, we have another video, one more video, which exactly relates to that. Okay, this features 2 musicians, Jeremy from New York and Sophie from Rwanda. Okay, we're going to show you an excerpt of a piece actually that was on South African TV, and which Temple Israel Heritage Center was involved in. So if you'd like to show the 3rd video, the excerpt from the 3rd video, Mandy, if you can. Thank you.
Jenoside nubwo yarangiye, ariko hari ibikomere byinshi yasigiye abanyarwanda, ababuze ababo, ababuze abavandimwe, ababuze ababyeyi, ababuze inshuti, ariko nanone tukumva tudakwiye guheranwa n'agahinda, ngo twumve dukwiye guhera muri bya bintu bibi, tukumva dukwiriye noneho kuva muri bwa buzima bubi twabayemo bwa jenoside, duharanira kwiyubaka no kubaka igihugu no kwiteza imbere, kugira ngo ayo mateka mabi yabaye mu gihugu cyacu.
I met Sophie on this trip to Rwanda in 2009. I had heard about this instrument inanga before. On the None Such Explorer series, there's a CD called The Music of Burundi, where there's one track of inanga music, which I had fallen in love with. So when I got to Rwanda, I told people I need to meet an inanga player. And people introduced me to Sophie, and we played a concert at the Goethe Institute in Kigali. And that's what sparked my collaboration with Sophie. The inanga, you will see, is a long wooden board, and it has one string wrapped around it at least 10 times. and it's pitched somewhere between a guitar and a bass. It's a pretty low pitch, actually. And interestingly enough, Sophie is not only one of the best inanga players, but she's the only female who plays it professionally. I played with her a little in Rwanda, and I wanted to play more with her. So I started working on getting her to America so that she could record with my band there. And then a little after that, she came to America, where she worked with both my project and another project called the Nile Project. And it was at this time in 2015, now 6 years after I initially met her, that we recorded our album Honey Wine with my band in New York. Riva Foreman is the director of the Temple Israel Heritage Center in Hillbrow. And this is a very, very old synagogue, a historic building. And it used to be a very Jewish neighborhood, now a little bit less so. So she wants it to be not just a synagogue, but something that reaches out to the community in general in that neighborhood. So we're kind of teaming up with the immigrant associations in that neighborhood to do some street performance outside of the synagogue to reach out to the community there, which unfortunately has experienced some xenophobic violence in recent years against immigrants.
Temple Israel Heritage Center.
Okay.
Thank you again, Manny.
Sorry about that.
Fine. You're off the hook now, Manny. We don't have any more videos for this session. So really, what we're interested in, we're looking for people to partner with us. If you have ideas, ideally, if we could find congregations or organizations or individuals from over, who would like to partner with us.
David?
Yes.
David, Graham Carpenter would like to say a few words.
Go ahead, Graham.
Hi, it's a pleasure to speak to you all this morning from London. My name is Graham. Firstly, I'm an executive board member for the World Union. I'm 30 years old, but more importantly, professionally, I work for an organization called Olam. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Olam is the umbrella organization for Jewish and Israeli international development, humanitarian aid, and global volunteering organizations around the world. There are over 50 different organizations. And as an executive board member, I saw this Zoom conversation in the agenda, and I was very excited to come. And it's been really amazing to learn about Temple Israel Heritage Center in Hillbrow. I think that I would love to have another conversation with you all, at another time, and tell you more about Olam. And because it's a community of different organizations that are working on all sorts of different issues, and there's a lot of collaboration in our network that might benefit you. In particular, there's another South African organization called Mensch. I don't know if you ever heard of Mensch. Rabbi David's nodding his head. That's good. Which is in the Olam network. And, certainly might be some collaboration there. Yeah, I'm just super excited. This is a very exciting project, and I'm
Graham, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm keen to know more about the actual people of Hillbrow, right? And how, why did Hillbrow become the area that it is compared to what it was? And yeah, just that's my question essentially. Why is that area, as you say, less economically prosperous than the areas around it in Johannesburg?
All right. Graham, first of all, thank you so much. We'd be delighted to work with you. We have a different sort of focus than Mensch. We know them well, but I'm going to, if I may, David, take that question on Hillbrow, seeing I've been around quite a long time. Yeah. Graham, in apartheid, Hillbrow was always the cosmopolitan area of South Africa. Yes, they did keep blacks out, but there were Portuguese, there were Italian, everyone went there, everyone had fun there. There, already in the 80s, things were changing dramatically. That is when I started working in transformation training. Johannesburg has always been more driven by an economic factor. And I was trained, by the way, in an American organization connected with UCLA University. He said the power of green is the greatest force to break all barriers. So as in the 80s already, long before South Africa became the new democracy, already plenty Africans and Black South Africans were moving into Hillbrow. It was a completely already mixed area. Now, as the time went on, of course, the Jews, as they always do, moved northwards, moved out, as you saw in our video, and so it became also more densely populated. But Hillbrow has always been the gateway to Johannesburg, if not South Africa, for the entire African immigrant community, running away from wars, running away from devastation. And I think that's our proudest moment. And today, Hillbrow is absolutely on the way up. It's like a little part of Africa in South Africa. In fact, you even have tours there to go around. However, the attitudes of the South Africans to the Africans, to our African brethren and African nationals, is still horrific. And we are working closely as well with the government and the Department of Social Development and the City Council to improve this. So yes, although crime itself has dropped, xenophobic attacks have not. So we would love your input. And, you know, I'm very proud to be part and working in this community of the most wonderful African, South Africans and immigrants on our doorstep.
Thank you, Reva. Thank you. I'll send you an email.
David would like to add. What was that?
I'll send you an email. Yeah.
David, would you like to add that? Because no one has ever focused on this question that Graham has. And it's a question which, should we solve, would be relevant to all immigrant communities worldwide. And I have never heard that question posed before. So I don't know if you'd like to add anything, David.
You're on mute, David.
David.
Unmute.
Sorry about that. Manny, I understand we need to start wrapping it up. Is that correct?
Well, we can go to a little longer. We can go.
Okay. Okay. Well, so I'll just continue, and I'll say, like, I think what we're looking for is really to find partners. Graham, you made a suggestion which sounds very, very appealing. But around the world, really. I mean, you know, if there are congregations who would like to link up with us, we have that element too. We actually have the synagogue. We're based in the synagogue building. The synagogue has been functioning. It has never missed a Shabbat or festival service ever in its history. Okay, despite all kinds of adversity. By the way, on the home feed that I put up, you can see an article there in Haaretz newspaper about the congregation itself, and I think you will find it fascinating. I think that there's nothing like this congregation anywhere else on the planet. I can sign off on that, and so we're looking to make these kind of partnerships, and they can be international. And actually, Rabbi Nathan Alfred is there. What we've been discussing lately is the possibility of actually bringing groups from overseas to South Africa for a sort of Tikkun Olam mission, where they can learn about, you know, first of all, enjoy South Africa, but also learn about what we're doing, tap into the South African story. We're able to bring really the best of the potential speakers and educators to learn about the South African story, because I think there's so much there that people can take back to their own societies. Whether they're more divided or less divided is beside the point. There are so many lessons that can be learned from South Africa. Daryl.
Yeah, I'd like to just add to what Riva said about Hillbrow, Graham, because I know David's from Cape Town and Riva came into the movement much later. I grew up in the progressive movement in South Africa, specifically Hillbrow. My parents' first apartment was in Hillbrow, actually before I was born, but still. And my dad's business was in Hillbrow. He was one of the pioneers of radio paging way before cell phones. And his offices were in the center of Hillbrow. And it was a vibrant community. Temple Israel was just the most amazing place to congregate for all of us. We had the youth movements, it was a very strong community. And we had a lot of fun. Israel really was the hub of not only Jewish life, but all life. And slowly but surely, people started moving more north, and the community started growing. The reform movement started developing shuls in other areas, but Temple Israel remained the center of the community. And I've been through, all the different areas of Temple Israel, because obviously having been to services as an adult and being involved in Temple Israel from other points of view, it's really an amazing place to be, and it's very vibrant. And unfortunately, it's not as upmarket as it used to be, but it's still a buzzing central community, and it's a wonderful place to be.
Daryl, thank you. First of all, I can see that the WUPJ Connection host 3 has got his hand up. We may be in trouble, but it's exactly because it's not in an upmarket area. In an upmarket area, we could never do what we're doing. And I see that Rabbi Joel Ostrom is with us as well. And I think they're going to close us off. So please be in touch with us.
I wasn't going to close you down, but I actually had a question. But we are getting very close, and I think people are wanting to get start for the next session. But I have a quick question. I was just interested in one thing, and that is, where do you get the money from to do all of the work that you do? Is it local or is it government?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you now that I'm totally in love with you. Why? Because you've hit the nail on the head. We are not at this stage getting money from anyone. I raised the money for the launch, and now we have to decide which is our government is nearly bankrupt anyway. But yes, we have to source the money internationally from those people who are interested in fighting hatred of the other, because that is at the heart, really, of the survival of mankind. So, as David said, Manny, thank you so much for bringing that up. But yes, we do have to have partners to raise money. But as Graham said, we have such focused projects we could achieve. We could help not only ourselves in Hillbrow with xenophobia, we could help young people understand that issue. We could help people worldwide. We could help people use, as David said, our example of Ubuntu, of understanding that we have to overcome hatred, that magnificent insert with L.B. Sachs. So yes, that is one of the areas we have to look at, Manny, to achieve a lot.
Thank you very much. I think it was so close that it's on the hour now, and I think we do have to close the session down. I'd like to thank you both, Riva and David, for a wonderful presentation, and also for the contributions from everybody who attended. And I'm going to wish you Shabbat Shalom. I have a family downstairs who are actually waiting for me to join them for our Shabbat dinner here in Australia.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hang on, Rabbi Joel Osrin, if you're still with us, this rabbi, who's one of the great rabbis of our movement, has been at my side every step of my journey.
Thank you, Reva. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.